Welcome to Made for Mondays, the source for digging a little deeper into the Believers Church Sunday messages and finding ways to apply them to our daily lives. Together, let's take a deeper look and find a way to bring Mondays back to life.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, what's up?
Welcome to Made for Mondays.
Hi, Rochelle.
Hi, I'm Rochelle.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I'm the outreach director here at Believers.
And occasional podcast host.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
We'll see how
Yeah.
it goes today if you let me come back.
Is this your first time hosting a podcast?
No, it's my second.
Oh, nice, cool.
Yeah, only my second time since we've been doing it with video.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
Yes, it's daunting.
Uh-huh.
So who are you guys?
Hey there. I'm Jamie.
And my name is Douglas.
Hi, Jamie and Douglas. I'm so glad
Yeah.
you're here today. Yeah, are you guys having a good Monday morning?
Yeah, tired but good.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, it's
so
weird.
tired.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is about making Mondays come back to life. So let's carry on like it's really good.
Yeah,
I like
totally.
it.
Yeah.
Roll with it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You've had a great morning.
I have had a whole morning, yes. Lots of unexpected twists and turns. Yeah, my kids' bus never showed up.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Unless you're a kid and you don't want to go to school.
Yeah.
Then it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Or if you're a bus driver and you're just doing your own thing.
Just driving around.
I'm just not going to do my job today.
Do.
Yeah.
Yes, but eventually we worked it out. I have never called transportation so many times in my life. I've never called them.
Oh, yes.
But I
you
called
went
them
from
several
zero to
Yeah.
several.
Yeah.
Did they know you by name?
I think they do now.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, but it was kind of cool because they got like the head of transportation went and picked them up.
Really?
No way.
It was that intense.
Like in their car?
In a little bus.
In a limo?
A limo.
Small
man,
bus?
this is so good. So the head of transportation just drives an actual bus.
Yeah.
It's like, it's my job. I got to always be ready.
Got to set the example.
That's awesome.
That is pretty good. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So you guys, how was the weekend? It was a holiday weekend. What'd you guys
was.
get into?
So Friday we did our date night thing. It was lovely. We had a great time. And then Saturday we had a bunch of friends over and we did a Mexican fiesta.
Nice.
How fun.
It was so fun. Bonnie made chicken enchiladas, which were amazing with homemade enchilada sauce and tons of guac. So much guac. I thought we'd never eat it all. It was gone though. So it was apparently just enough.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. We had a great time.
That's
And
incredible.
then we fire pitted, and it was beautiful weather for
Yeah.
that too. So
The weather
yeah,
was very, very nice.
it was super good.
Yes, yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
What about you, Douglas?
So we did a family movie night. There's a movie that just came out recently called Five Nights at Freddy's, and
I'm not familiar with it.
we watched it as a family. It was great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It sounds like a horror film.
It is. It's like
Oh.
so it's based on a video game that my son really enjoys, and there's like a lot of there's a whole community around this game. It's a pretty big deal, and so all the middle schoolers are ate up over this game and this movie. So we watched it as a family last night and or the other night and had a great time.
Yeah.
It was fun.
So was it a good movie?
Yeah, it's actually surprisingly good. Like
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. I didn't think I would because like I was afraid it was just gonna be a bad movie. It wasn't a great movie, but it was a great movie based on the game, if that makes sense.
So the game's
Yeah.
not great either?
The game it's weird. It's so hard to explain. Yeah,
Because if the movie wasn't great, but it was great for the game, then that would make the game not great.
yeah. Oh yeah. So it's a great game,
Okay.
but just don't expect much, if that makes sense. It's one of those games.
Low expectations.
Low
That's
expectations.
Sam's key to
Yeah,
success.
but it's very fun. It was a fun movie, and I think the family we enjoyed watching it. It was cool. It was
Nice.
kind of cool.
Yeah. Very cool.
Very good. How about you, Rochelle?
Yeah, me. So we had one of those weekends where I had 1,000 visits. So as a foster mom, we have like caseworker visits and CASA worker visits and resource worker visits.
Wow.
It's a lot. So that was most of Thursday going into Friday. But then my twins turned 17.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we had a birthday celebration and they got to experience the first Lee Cheeks birthday shindig. And
Was it great?
it was incredible. I had to like walk them through it because it's so intense because there's just so much love being showered on everybody. There's Stevie Wonder versions of Happy Birthday.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
It's a good time.
that's cool.
Yeah, so that was really fun. And then Saturday, Graham kept the kiddos so that I could do some early Christmas shopping.
Nice.
I loved it.
Wow.
Yeah. So was able to get.
Good for you. You're already doing Christmas shopping?
I have to. Never have I ever done it this early.
Okay.
But once I jumped, my house doubled this year.
It did.
And I was like, I can't stay on top of things unless I do them early now.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Which you've been encouraging me to do for years. But
Yeah, good for you. I think I'm done with Christmas shopping.
I thought you were going to say I'm done with Christmas. I'm done with Christmas.
I am done with Christmas.
You know.
Bah humbug.
bah.
That's a little early cue into our Christmas series.
Yeah, a little Easter egg for the listeners.
Yes, yeah. I wore my Christmas socks today
nice.
just for that because I'm real excited about the holiday
Yeah,
season.
you're already working on Christmas with the play.
Yes, yeah. We are way deep into the rehearsal process for Jam's Christmas Carol, which we let everybody know about yesterday in services. And it is going to be so much fun. It's on December 1st and 2nd. And you guys, the privilege I have to direct this cast is insane. I'll give you another sneak peek. I did this last year too. Martin Burke is in the show.
Well,
He's got a very big role.
enough said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
So you should register for which show you plan to attend, and you should invite people to come with you because it's a family-friendly, fun event.
Yes.
And yeah, so go to the app or our website, go to the events tab, register, and register for your guests too, because we want to make sure we have enough coffee and cookies and all the things that we're preparing for that weekend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love I love about this weekend. It's an incredible time to invite folks out to just be a part of something where, they might not be up for coming on a Sunday just yet. But yeah, it's a way to soften hearts and just be there for each other.
It's an easy entree place.
Yes.
Yeah. Low bar. Just come on in. Yeah. Very, very low pressure, not very churchy. It'll be good.
Yes, it'll be a great time. So I would love to know, we have been doing this Bible reading plan. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
we are on day 310.
310.
Yeah. How many days?
310 days. So we're, rounding the final stretch here.
Yeah, we're committed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is happening.
We're almost to the book of Revelation.
Hey, there you
Your
go.
favorite.
Whew.
Yeah.
I might start reading that book while I'm going through Revelation
Yeah.
on the Bible Reading Challenge.
So the book that you're talking about, I forgot what it's called.
I forget the title, but I know the author. It's Scott McKnight, who is a very solid theologian, recently released a book on Revelation. And Doug and I both bought the book and planning on reading it. And I'm hoping that it changes my entire perspective on the book of Revelation. So I've taken college classes on the book of Revelation that left me just as confused as when I started. But I don't have great things to say about my college education anyway. So it may have just been, the institution that was teaching me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really hopeful that this book is going to make it finally make sense to me, and it's going to be the interpretation of it that just clicks for me. And after all of these years of me trying to appreciate and understand what's going on in the book of Revelation, I think Scott McKnight is the one.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Who's gonna do it for me.
That's really great. I might have to check this out. Any book that Doug recommends, I'm probably going to read.
He hasn't read it yet, have you?
I haven't. No, I'm hoping to start it this week. I finished the other book I was reading, so I have an open.
You didn't, not the apathy one.
No.
Okay.
I was reading a horror story. I finished that.
Got to mix it up.
Oh yeah, it was very, very frightening.
See, good for you.
Yeah.
I should read more entertaining things, but I don't.
Oh man, yeah. I feel like Doug's pretty good at recommending that. We're reading right now a C.S. Lewis book that you recommended.
Yeah, Till We Have Faces.
Till We Have Faces.
I've not heard of that one.
Oh, it's my favorite book of all time.
I thought the space whatever thing was your favorite.
That's very good too. I named my son after that. It's that good. Oh,
it's true.
Yeah, Ransom. It's the
Ransom
name
is
of
the
lead character in the space trilogy.
Yeah.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
so classy. Naming your kids after book characters.
Yeah, and Annabelle's named after an Edgar Allan Poe poem.
Yeah.
Yeah, Annabelle Lee.
Well, what about Syntyche?
Oh, yeah. That's a very good name, too.
Yeah, it's a
If we have a third
good Bible
kid.
name. Yeah. So
I contemplated bringing that up today because when you were going through that yesterday, I was thinking about this stereotype that we have in the African American community about how we name our kids. And there's like all sorts of jokes about how we name our kids. And I was like, this is so funny because it reminded me of that. Yeah.
Yeah, names, man, sometimes Bible names are so scary
Yeah.
to read out loud.
So I sent to the teaching team a website that helps you pronounce Bible names, because a lot of them you get to and you're just like, I have no idea how you're supposed to say this name. So you just look up the name alphabetically and hit the play button and it says it out loud for you.
That's
That's
so
how
cool.
I got Syntyche and Iodius.
Iodius.
That's a cool name. Iodius.
Iodius.
Yeah.
Yeah. Iodius. I love it. That'd be fun to see written on T-shirts.
Yeah.
So, but the Bible challenge, did you have anything on? We're in Hebrews right now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm reading that, and I'm also reading. We started a reading plan for students, based on the series that we're going through, and we just kicked off a brand new series called Everything Everywhere, and it's a series about stress.
Okay.
So I wanted to plug that as well. It's a really good reading series. So parents and students, if you're listening, check it out. You can find it on YouVersion. Just look up Everything Everywhere. And the same graphic is the one that we're using for our series too, so you can find it easy that way.
Okay.
But it's a really good reading plan, kind of helping students, let go of burdens that they carry by allowing others to come alongside them and help them carry it. So the first couple of days was all about kind of letting God help you carry your burdens. He's trustworthy. You can let him, come alongside you in that. You don't have to carry it alone.
Yeah.
And it's so important for students to know that that's a possibility.
Yeah.
They don't have to carry it by themselves. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, and you will encounter stress. So what are you going to do when you face something that's really difficult like that? So it's a really, really good reading plan.
Awesome.
Super quick too, like a single verse and a quick little devotion each day.
And how many days is that?
So it's throughout the whole series. I believe it's a 4-week
Reading plan?
full reading plan.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Very cool. Yeah. So I think last week too, we were reading through Titus.
Yes.
And this really stuck out to me. So oftentimes when I'm reading Paul, I can get sort of jaded because of the legalism that Pastor Tyler was talking about last week. So when I hear these scriptures about, hey, you should really not be drinking and you need to submit to your husband and all of that stuff, I start to kind of shut down oftentimes.
A lot of people do.
Yeah. So what I really appreciated this time was I listened to it on streetlights. Have you guys?
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
on occasion.
On occasion.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So this is this app.
Tyler told me about that.
Yeah,
I think, right?
he put me onto it too. Yeah. So with this app, you're hearing the Bible read through very diverse, different voices. It's really cool. It mixes it up, and then it has like lo-fi music playing with it. So there's a whole vibe to listen to. The scripture. And when I heard it with this more human tone than when I was reading it, it just landed in a different way.
Oh, that's interesting.
It was really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt this time like Paul was, which I think is probably the intent. Paul was more like, hey, man, we don't need to do that. We have followers of Jesus. We have access to like such a greater way to live. And it didn't feel as judgmental and condescending as sometimes I read Paul to be.
No, that's so good, because I think I do the same when I'm reading. I'll kind of put my own inflection into it.
Well, sure.
and all of that. I wonder how different it could be if I simply just thought about a different way of reading it like that.
Yeah, that's really good.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do we have a what the what?
That was really good.
Yeah, that's good.
It's better. I'm not going to say it's better than Heather's. It's just different.
Yeah. It's different.
Yeah.
I can't.
That was really
I can't
good,
top
though.
Heather's.
Sam thinks you can.
What?
He doesn't like it
He doesn't like it at all.
at all.
Oh man.
But I don't think we have a what the what.
Okay.
But it was a pleasure hearing you
And you
give it a plug.
Yeah, no questions this week.
Yeah.
no questions. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. So I want to get more into yesterday and all that we dove into yesterday. It was such a beautiful service. We had a really cool response time to it. So, how did you guys feel about that moment?
So it was funny for me because I walked off the stage at that moment. And so I really didn't know if anyone came up or not until after the service was over. And then I talked to people who were up front. And I think there was a decent response in both, I think.
Yeah,
Yes.
it seemed like it.
Yeah. So, I'm always, we try not to do that every week because it just is too much. But I do think every time we do it, there seems to be a pretty solid response, which tells me that, I think people appreciate and need the opportunity to just have someone pray over them, pray with them, pray for them. And I'm grateful that, the leaders were available, and I thought it was very cool to hear that so many people responded. In the second service, before I even finished the invitation of laying out what I was asking people to do, there was already a guy standing there right in front of the person he was going to pray with. So, and I talked to him a little bit prior to the service, so I knew he was kind of carrying something heavy, and to see him there, even before I said amen, I just thought it was really cool. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I love that time of reflection, even if I don't go up or someone doesn't go up, but to have that moment in the sacred space that's created on a Sunday morning in a worship experience, to just really chew up what we just ingested, which was so good. And especially talking about like who are we going to kind of have these reconciled relationships with and be healed with before we come to Jesus. So.
Yeah. It's something you mentioned, Jamie, from the stage. You said, like, you could totally pray in your seat. Yeah. And it still works, right? God still hears your prayer. Like, it's, but if you come down, there's something about being a part of community that prays together. Yeah. And I think that's so true. Like, so I was a part of the last one that we did, standing on the front of the stage. And I still remember the people that came to my kind of line, and I had a chance to pray for them. And it was impactful in my life. Yes. Like, I still remember what we prayed for. Yeah. So when I see that person in the comments now, there's like a really cool connection that we have a shared experience together. Cool. So it's not just for the person coming down to the front, but even for the person who's doing the praying. It's like, it's an honor. Yeah. And it's really cool to have that moment with this person, and they trust you to share something like that. Yeah. Man, there's just like instant connection, instant relationship. Yeah. So very, very cool. Community that prays together. There's something special about that. So special.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to assume someone's listening who wasn't a part of yesterday.
I think that's a good assumption.
And so we're going to set up more of what this time was in response to. Yeah. So yesterday we've been in our series Joyride, and you kind of walked us through this time that Paul has been in prison, and how really a way that we experience joy is by acquiring our desires. Yeah. And we get to see Paul, even in the middle of something like being in jail where we would think that'd be horrible, he still had joy because his greatest desire was to see the message of Jesus spread and for others to be able to experience his hope. So he was still totally full of joy. Yeah. Even in this, dark space. So how would you encourage someone to identify the fulfilled desires that they have even in the midst of a storm?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. We were saying before we started, these questions are tough. So
there's going to be a lot of like, oh, that was a good question.
Yeah, that was good. So part of my answer to that is I'm not sure I can help someone identify fulfilled desires. I think where my mind went with that question, like if you're going through something, and it sounds so churchy, I almost don't like my answer, but it was true for Paul. So like Paul is experiencing joy, not happiness necessarily, but this deep-seated soul satisfaction thing that is joy, the biblical sense of that word. And he's experiencing in the midst of this difficult thing because the thing he desires is this transcendent thing of becoming like Jesus and having others have that encounter also. So he has joy. And I guess when I hear that question, I think if you're going through something difficult and you can't do the James 1, where James tells us to count it all joy when we fall into various troubles and trials. And if you can't rejoice in the Lord always, and again, I say rejoice from Philippians 4:4, then that's an indicator that the thing you desire is kind of maybe not as lofty as what Paul was desiring. And I know that sounds a little churchy, because like if you're going through something incredibly hard, of course you're not feeling happy, but happy and joy aren't necessarily the same thing. But if you can reframe the thing that you're going through, even if it's like a health crisis, but you can reframe this health crisis in such a way that this is teaching me dependence on God, this is stretching me, this is allowing a community of people around me. I'm able to see the body of Christ in action, and that's an encouragement. I don't know if that's a decent answer or not, but that's kind of where my mind went with it.
Yeah. It's funny because like when I read the question, I think of those, those like rom-coms.
I love rom-coms.
I know they're the best, right? Where the person is looking for something and it's right in front of them the whole time. And they realize at the end of the movie, like, oh, it's this person. This person has been with me the whole time. And they're the one that I've, really been searching for. And it's this amazing realization that I've been looking for something and it's been here. I've just been distracted, or I've had some unrealistic expectations or whatever. And I think I see that in my life all the time.
Yeah.
There are things that I'm looking for or things that I think I want. And then I realize that, well, I have community, or I have that sense of purpose, or I feel like I belong, or I have like a way to find resolution in something. And it's been there the whole time. I just haven't noticed it. It's kind of like what you said, to reframe the way that you see things.
Yeah.
I think sometimes that joy, it's there. I think we just have to realize how to embrace it, and how to, in the middle of a storm, it's way more difficult,
For
right?
sure.
And in the rom-coms, it usually comes from a place of like the guy or the girl's humbled. You're like, oh man, I can't do it. Oh wait, this person's there. And it's in that place of humility that they can actually see it. And I think that comes with, all of those fulfilled kind of moments of joy and desire. Like when I'm humble enough to see it, I guess I'll know how to embrace it too.
Yeah.
And it's...
So, not to derail this, but rom-com, is that a romantic comedy?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
I had no idea that was called rom-com.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun
When
way
did
to
that
say
happen?
it. I guess it's the first one.
I had never heard
Yeah.
it said that way.
When our
yeah.
culture got too lazy to pronounce the whole word.
We are so lazy.
I guess I'm just so out of touch. So
Yeah.
I'm
So
old.
somebody in the office, they pronounce tropical smoothie Trosmo. It's like, yo, it's not hard to say. Why would you abbreviate tropical smoothie? You want to go Trosmo? No, I don't.
Oh,
Just because you
man.
said it that way.
Right? They're like, ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time to say that.
Oh man. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
That's so funny. Yeah, I think too, I know I've had to face this a lot as a resource parent, and also definitely ministry. I watch you guys do it so beautifully, but it's that thing that, we were talking about yesterday, where are we in relationship with people in a deep way that we can help them identify it, knowing where we have that pulse on, okay, this is the moment where we can shed light on.
Yeah.
We get this beautiful thing to celebrate. And I think validation also has been a big part of that, is like, can I validate the storm that you're in simultaneously pointing out, this is the good that is coming from this. And then I like to also wrap it back around and be like, but it still sucks right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally.
right.
Yeah.
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 It's like what I think last week's message, not this past Sunday, but the previous one, when you were challenging people to find your person, the person that will help you walk through like the difficult times and the good times. I think that talk was helpful in this too. Like that one person, like you said, Rochelle, the person who can help you identify what that desire is, or what the answer is, or what the solution is, and is willing to say, and I know it's not easy, but I'm going to walk alongside you through it. Like the whole Job kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Man, Job, you're going through a lot. We're just going to rest with you and grieve with you.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful. I think everybody needs that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why the community prayer time was so cool and so amazing and so important.
Yeah.
It's a chance to do that.
Absolutely. And I think it'd be a lot easier to identify those people if they weren't people, right? So we heard a quote from you yesterday that I loved. Jamie, you said, if people weren't so hard to deal with, life would be a lot more enjoyable.
I mean, I think everyone agreed with me.
Oh, 100%.
We're not really an amening kind of church, but I heard a lot of amens.
Yeah, like nobody got up and stormed out angry when you said, "Oh, people are perfect."
Right?
Yeah.
People are hard.
Yeah, they're tough. So they
also add joy.
Right.
But they're also joy robbers.
Yeah.
They're both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you find yourself more often avoiding these joy robbers?
Yes, of course.
Or, of course, done. Next.
Next question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or are there opportunities where you're able to embrace folks that are more difficult?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's human nature to try to avoid the people who cause you grief, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's one of the reasons I'm almost never on social media is because a lot of joy suckers hang out on social media. Yeah. And so, I mean, you don't have social media at all.
Do the social.
Yeah.
Nice.
I just, I pretty much just share believer stuff. That's my active life on social media. But it's because there's just so much negativity and people are such joy robbers that I try not to subject myself to things that I know are going to rob me of joy. And I think that's normal. And I think it's somewhat healthy to have certain boundaries around you. But then the other side of that is you also have a responsibility to bear one another's burdens as followers of Jesus. And so we have some responsibility to come alongside of people who maybe are, the extra grace required kind of people. And you can't avoid them completely. Yeah. So you have to figure out how to navigate relational conflict and just be as healthy as you can with the interactions that you have with those folks.
Yeah, I guess that's where boundaries come in, right?
Yeah.
To have those boundaries in place where emotionally and mentally healthy in a way.
Yeah.
So I tend to be a really optimistic person. So if I'm close to somebody who's very pessimistic, it kind of really gets me down. It's a bummer. Yeah. And if I'm constantly in that kind of setting, it'll mess up with my internal peace, right? Which is, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to avoid, but also to set those boundaries. If I can identify that I'm not emotionally healthy, I need to have good quiet time so I can kind of re-energize myself in a sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess just having permission to find those times of rest kind of helps in that sense too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like how you pointed out some of the markers that you have with, I start to feel depressed. That's a marker that a boundary needs to be set here. I'm curious, I did not send this question to you guys, but I'm curious, what are some other markers that allow you to say, okay, this is where the line needs to be drawn with someone who may be draining the joy versus building it up?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Man, Rochelle.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's really good. And I think that's a helpful thing. I was just talking with my daughter yesterday about a relationship around her that has, that she's having to draw some boundaries on right now. And she did it so gracefully and yet truthfully. And so in that particular instance, if there's a sense that, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it, but if you feel as if, like on the other side of this relationship, it's like completely a one-sided deal, or like there's almost a manipulation kind of thing that was at play. She just had to draw a hard line on that and say, I just can't be party to this, so like a violation of your own conscience. Mm-hmm. I think maybe is partly what that is. I'm not sure I'm doing a good job on that, but
no, yeah, I think it is. I think it's just understanding who you are and what you can what you can take and what you can't. So
Yeah.
I know,
and it can be different for different folks. Sure,
totally. Like I know internal markers in my own life. If I find myself in a place where I'm like feeling way more anxious, then
that's
like
good.
I have to be aware of that. And
Yeah.
for a long time, I was not aware of that. So it kind of leads to like kind of like spiraling out of control emotionally. So
Yeah.
if I'm now aware of that, I can do a way better job at creating those boundaries in that. And it could be something as simple as just like a little bit of distance, some emotional distance, maybe some like actual physical distance or like conversation, but still, still trying to be there for the person and how you can, but making sure it's safe for you as well.
Yeah.
Like I think of that one story when Paul and Barnabas were trying to go on the missionary journey and John Mark had let him down previously.
Yep.
So Paul was like, we're not taking him. And then Barnabas was like, okay, well, I'll take him. And there was like a disagreement, and Paul seemed like he thought it was important to build boundaries for him, but like Barnabas was like, no, I can do this still. And John Mark ended up being like a really important part of the Bible, right?
Yeah.
I think that's really cool, and I think that story is great because there's no right or wrong way.
Yeah.
This was important for Paul, and this was important for Barnabas, and I think both were able to do it based on what they thought was important to them, but also important to the other person.
Yeah, that's a good
And that's really
illustration.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a perfect leeway into my next question, because I noticed you were talking about these people that Paul was addressing in the passage in Philippians 4 yesterday. They were having conflict, and he was talking about, the importance of resolving this conflict before they go to the Lord. And I notice oftentimes when I'm reading Paul's letters, he is doing a lot of conflict management.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So why do you think that was just such a significant theme in his writings?
Well, it can't be because people have a hard time getting along.
Yeah.
I think
Not at all.
I think that's what it is. And the other side of that is, according to Jesus, unity is one of the most important things in the life of the followers of Jesus, the movement that is the church. Jesus said it would be our unity. His prayer in John 17, right before the crucifixion, is for the unity of those who would follow him. So that's the desire of Jesus. And Jesus said our unity would be like the thing that convinces a watching world that the message of Jesus is true. Because if Jesus is who he claimed to be, and he overcame the sin of the world to forge this new community, if there's any truth to it, that new community will walk in unity just as Jesus and the Father were one. That's what he prayed, that we would be united just like that. And so if we can't, then it invalidates, it makes it hard to believe that message. And so Paul spends a lot of time going through conflicts in the church in Corinth. He talks about it in Romans. He talks about just about every letter I think that's written. There's some conflict that's being addressed because it's the biggest problem the church faces, and people are complicated, and people can rob you of joy, and so you have to. He has to constantly call them back to this place of forgiveness and overlooking being slighted and thinking of yourself less and not being offended and all of the things that he's constantly calling us to. It's because it's hard.
Yeah.
And, as someone who's now been, leading a church for 20 years, one of the things that is like the constant theme of leading a church, of church life, is people. Conflicts are inevitable, and what often happens is people leave church or they bounce to a different church. Conflict is that thing that kind of constantly keeps people churning in and out of churches and in and out of their relationship with Jesus, really. And what Paul advocates is leaning into the relationships that you have and navigating through those conflicts so that you can forge true unity, because unity is not conflict avoidance. Unity is properly resolving conflict in a way that honors other people and honors the Lord. And you can't have unity if you haven't gone through that process. And most people short circuit the process because it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a cough.
I had one too.
Fix it in post. So I think part of it too is like, could you imagine, like I tend to want to resolve things very quickly. If there's something in my life, it's like, we got to deal with this right now. For Paul, like he would set up a church and then would go set up a different church elsewhere and would hear like, oh, hey, remember that church you set up like 3 months ago? They're not doing well.
Yeah.
So he'd write him a letter. It would take a few months to get there and then take a few months to get back to him. Like that would drive me crazy knowing that I couldn't resolve conflict immediately just because of like the time it took to communicate back then.
Right.
So I think a lot of Paul's letters are like conflict resolution because like in the amount of time that he's been there and hasn't been able to talk to them on a daily basis, that conflict builds up and it's hard to deal with if you're not in it every single day. So man, I feel so bad for him writing these letters and like praying and like loving these people like family, knowing I can't be there for them to help walk them through it. And that's why in Philippians, right, he says like, you guys were doing so good while I was there. Now that I'm not there, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Yeah. The sense where like, you know, I've set you up a really good foundation. Keep going with it. And I know you're going to mess up. So, you know, the importance of grace and all that too.
Yeah. I think, you know, the timeline that you mentioned is kind of interesting because it's probably true that he learned about this conflict when Epaphroditus came with the gift of money from this church. And Paul says, hey, Epaphroditus, how are things going in Philippi? And he starts telling him all the stuff. And one of the things that he mentions is, man, Euodia and Syntyche, they are going at it, you know?
Yeah.
And then Paul has to, so it took however long for Epaphroditus to get to Paul. Conflict was already going. Takes Paul however long to write this letter. It has to be a while, right?
Oh, yes, yeah.
And then it takes however long for Epaphroditus to go back with this letter. So yeah, this conflict's been raging for maybe years.
Yeah.
It had been 12 years since the church had been started. So like, who knows how long this conflict had been going on?
Yeah, and like it's funny because I know if I let an argument go on too long, like the internal dialogue starts happening.
Yeah.
And in my own head, it tends to become way worse than it was.
Yeah.
Like it builds and builds and you start kind of forming a view of the other person.
Yes.
That's not fair and not correct. I couldn't imagine that going on for months. Right. Yeah. The conflict probably got to a point where it was out of control.
Yeah.
So as a spiritual father, how do you step into that and help and encourage? Yeah. So I think reading Paul's letters like that, I have so much empathy and just, I see where he's coming from with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying at the response time yesterday was like Paul was so concerned about the welfare of this church and the relational wholeness of the people in the church that, you know, he's writing this letter and he goes out of his way to address these two people specifically because he loves them so much and he cares so much for the welfare of this church. And by application, that's true here too. Like, and it's a little overwhelming to have conversations in the Commons and to know that there's so, like, what was true in this church in Philippi is still true today. Obviously, there are still conflicts here and there and everywhere. And you know, as a pastor of the church, you long more than anything to see like healthy resolution to these things so that the church can continue to move forward. And that's why that response time was so important.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick at this a little more because I think it's very interesting that you brought up the timing of Paul being able to respond to this. And then fast forward to today, we have this thing called the internet and social media, and people speaking into a conflict just goes like rapid speed.
Yeah.
And we see how it is affecting the generation and how people aren't resolving it, but it's almost going so fast because it's being addressed so fast that there's no resolution within it. So I'm curious, how do you guys propose that we help the next generation who is getting technology even faster and faster? How do we help them slow down and resolve conflict?
Yeah, well, Doug is the expert in next gen. However, I will just say that, I mean, this is true for for everyone, but it is probably particularly true for the next generation. But I think it's true for anyone. Part of the answer to that is don't engage in conflict electronically.
Yeah.
Like a sure way to slow that down and to ensure proper response time. And you can't build empathy. You can't be empathetic to someone online. And just as you were talking about the tone of Paul's letters, and hearing it read in a different tone changes your understanding and appreciation of what it is he's saying. That's also true in all electronic form of communication. So you can be misreading intent and all kinds of things. And I know for me, just this last week, I had several in-person meetings that were kind of weighty, but they were done in person, face to face, and there's just something like they were careful, and they were there was more understanding being developed. We were working harder to find common ground with one another. I just think the art of having real conversations is part of how we do. We have to get back to more of that.
Yeah. And I think social media, just by what it is, it kind of rewards quick responses and just quick reaction.
Yeah.
Like if somebody posts something and if you're the first comment and you can tear them apart, you're going to get a lot of likes, you're going to get a lot of followers, you're going to be now in the limelight. Like you showed this person, you told them, you canceled them, way to go. So like we have a platform, multiple platforms that really incentivize quick reaction and witty and tear people apart, and you win the argument. So of course we have people responding that way. And now we're seeing that response happening in relationships too. So I think it is. It's just slowing everything down, giving ourselves time to think, giving ourselves time to process. Like if there's a really difficult situation happening in culture, I can't respond quickly to it. I have to think and I have to process and I have to see what it means to me and my family and my community and how can I actually be a part of the positive kind of encouragement in this sense.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen with a quick reaction.
Right.
It takes prayer and it takes meditation and
I was just going to
seeking counsel from others.
Yeah, I was just going to say it kind of lends itself to that formula. You have the problem.
Oh, yeah.
You have to add prayer to it. And if you're responding so fast that you haven't had time to pray, then there's not going to be peace on the other side of that. So, you have to at least pause long enough to be able to pray reasonably around this thing, around the problem, and get God's perspective on it and praying for the other person. And that does take a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've seen pastors online too do one of either one. They'll respond really quickly and a week later apologize.
Yeah.
And be like, I was wrong. I responded emotionally and I didn't have all the details or I didn't know what was happening and later had to apologize. On the other side though, I've seen pastors not respond quick at all and get criticized for it.
Yep.
Like, where were you? Like, what is your thought? Like, you weren't a part of this thing happening. And they're like, whoa, I was trying to figure it out.
Right.
This is so very complicated.
Right.
So I feel like just that platform itself, it doesn't lend itself to patience or slow,
so true,
prayerful, and not like inactive. By no means is it saying don't do anything, but just like, no, prayerfully and meditate on God's word and see what it means to respond in this sense. Yeah. And you can't do that on social media because it doesn't reward it. It doesn't lend itself to that kind of conversation.
Right.
By the time you post anything, it's done. It's moved on.
Yep.
You've missed the moment.
Yeah. Well, another benefit, I think, of this slowing down technique to be able to deal with conflict well is that we're able to identify things that we have in common, which I love how you brought that up, that we have more things in common than we have different. I was like, I don't know about that, Jamie, but like, we do when you think about it, but it's hard to see that. So I would love for us to just give some examples of ways that we have seen commonalities be a source for conflict resolution and pushing us towards greater joy.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, yesterday, on any given Sunday here, just the diversity of people who are gathered together here. I mean, I can't think of another scenario that would bring people together
Yeah, and I love the diversity because I feel like if it was just like a bunch of me's, like a bunch of Dougs, I would always be right. And there would never be conflict, but I would never grow. And I would never
disagree with yourself?
All the time, but I keep it to myself, so I would never tell the other Doug.
I got you.
Like, I hate you, other Doug, but I'm not going to say it. But yeah, like I would never change. I would never grow. I would be stagnant. So the diversity of a perspective, even somebody can spot something in my life that I would never spot. Yeah. They'll see my blind spot where for me, it's completely blind. Yeah. So we need those people in our lives who are not like us, who don't think like us, who don't live like us. They're able to say like, what if you challenge yourself in this way? Oh yeah, I need to do that. Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. So yeah, we need that diversity to grow and strengthen ourselves.
Yeah. Speaking of having people surrounding us that don't think like us, you also reminded us we had an election last week.
Yeah, it was last week, wasn't it? Yeah. I had 1,000 text messages. Hey, vote for me. Wait, how'd you get my number? Who are you?
Oh, I love it. Well, I don't have like a ton of the social side. I didn't have that voice, but I was telling Jamie my voting experience was so fun.
Oh, yeah. You did have a fun voting experience.
Yes. Yeah. I get to vote at this. It's like an old black church, and it was incredible. I drove up, and they have like speakers playing all this like disco music. And there's like...
That is awesome.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. There's like all these elders who are out there, and they're like talking about, oh, you want him to get out of Washington. And they're going back and forth about their political views. But it was like, it was such love and camaraderie happening. There was no viciousness to it, but we know that's more rare in our climate, and we're coming into an election year where things are about to get even more heated. So we have seen that we often elevate our political views over the need to reconcile these relationships and to have people around us that we care deeply about and we can resolve conflict with. So why do you think that is? Why do you think that we elevate our political affiliations over healthy relationships?
Man, if we could figure that out, we could solve a lot of problems.
I figured we'd give it a start.
Yeah. Go ahead, Doug. Solve this one for us.
So it's fun, like if you lessen the stakes, I think it's easier to talk about. So look at like sports teams. You have two people who like different teams, and there's playful banter. Like my team's better than your team. You're garbage because you like this team and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's a sense there where I think we just want to be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
We want to root for a side. We want to win. We want to defeat somebody else. And when it's football or sports ball of any types, like it's fun. It's like playful. Some people take it very serious.
They do.
They get tattoos.
Yes.
And all that funny stuff. But it's usually playful, right? But if you make it something like politics or any other kind of social form that you kind of like identify with, man, the stakes are way higher. So we tend to take it way more serious, and we're willing to distance ourselves even more from that other person. We're willing to hurt somebody and sever our relationship because this thing we think is so very important. So maybe it's just like, maybe realizing it's kind of like sports ball. Maybe it's not as important as we're putting a lot of stuff into. Maybe the kingdom, God's kingdom, is more important. Maybe that's something we should be fighting for and building up and prioritizing more so than the things that tend to divide us. I don't know. I don't have any answers.
I think I'm increasingly convinced that many of us have we've been successfully manipulated by politicians and media outlets because it's good for their ratings. It's good for generating revenue. You can fundraise tactic if that other person is out to hurt you, but you give me $10 and I will protect you. That's a very base motivation for people. And if you can keep people agitated, you keep those, the ratings on the news programs keeps them high because everyone who's not thinking like you is out to get you. So listen to why we all believe what we believe, and listen to as we destroy the other point of view. I think more and more, I'm just convinced we're being played by people who want to hang on to power and want to get money from us, and we're willing participants in it because they play on our fears, and fear is a very powerful thing. And so, I think that's why that's happening. And the only solution is like what Doug just mentioned. I think a huge part of the solution would be if followers of Jesus would care more about the kingdom of heaven than the kingdom of this world. And but that's I don't even want to say it's not unrealistic, but it requires something that not many. I'm not seeing it live out very well. I listened to an interview with Tim Keller not too long ago. Of course, he passed away.
Yeah.
Carey Nieuwhof put together all three of his interviews into one episode. It was really good. And one of the things that he said is even like in the, I can't remember what the four are. Doug, you may be able to remember, but there's like four tenets that depending on your faith and your political persuasion, you'll mention two out of the four, but you never really see a church environment that mentions all four.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was like sanctity of life was one. I'm gonna draw a blank, but there's this emphasis, and even so, what's happening is a lot of Christians say, well, my ways, it's not just political; it's also because of my faith in Jesus. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, it's only a portion of your faith in Jesus, because the other political party actually represents the other portions of Jesus that you're not talking about because it doesn't align with your political persuasion. And so both sides can effectively use Jesus on their side also and make it seem spiritual, but it's really not.
Yeah.
So
that's really interesting.
So it weaponizes faith as well as politics, and that's kind of where we are today. Like on the right side, it's sanctity of life. On the left side, it's justice, it's equality issues. There's four of those things. There's two on one side, two on the other side, and most churches will emphasize two at the exclusion of the other two. Yeah,
it's weird because like when you read the whole Sermon on the Mount, like you get the full image of what that kingdom could look like.
Right.
And he challenged us to do things that even that both parties wouldn't adhere to, like to love your enemies, stuff like that.
Yes.
So maybe that mindset, that kingdom mindset, would help us to meet in the middle and to acknowledge like this party's doing some things amazing, this one's doing some things really well too. Let's collaborate. Let's make this work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've noticed in our human experience, we all have this desire to be seen and known. And oftentimes we tether that fulfillment to what we believe in or what a group of people believes in. And so then it's almost like who we are at the very core of us is threatened if someone doesn't align with the way that we think. And so, I absolutely think that being focused on my identity is as someone made in the image of God.
Right.
And that is the thing that elevates in the way that I approach my relationships. I think we would find a lot of healing.
100%.
Yeah. And God's kingdom is going to win.
Yeah.
So like it's the winning side all the time, right?
Spoiler alert.
Winning side every time. Yeah, and if my identity is not in my political party or in my candidate, but it's in Jesus and his kingdom, how much better would it be if we were fighting for the kingdom of heaven and just pointing people to Jesus over this divisive trying to align people to a pretty flawed philosophical, political view.
Yeah. And it's funny because like, man, I think the church has done such a poor job at that over the years.
Yes,
Because like
they
we're
have.
just as divided as politics.
100%.
So like even that idea of the kingdom of heaven, like you could ask like, well, whose idea of the kingdom? Is it ours or this
Yeah.
other denomination or this other kind of idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the church, like that sense of unity that you talked about a little bit ago, it's so important to show the world that it is possible.
Yeah.
Because they could look at us and say like, oh, you're teaching unity? Where is that? And within your own walls. And it's so difficult. If we don't
Yeah.
show it, why would the world want to be a part of it?
Yeah. And so the solution is more Jesus and a little bit of a sneak peek into next year. We're going to be in our reading plans spending a lot of time just being with Jesus next year in our Bible reading plan.
Yeah.
And the idea is if we can tether our thoughts more to the person of Jesus, maybe it will be a little bit more transformative. So we're going to have an entire year of just kind of reading the words and teachings and actions of Jesus.
It's gonna be really cool.
It's going to be
Yeah.
really good.
I love that.
I'm very excited about it.
It's like what you talked about yesterday, the fixation,
Yeah, target fixation.
target fixation.
Yeah, what you look motorcycling, what you look at is where you go. So if you look at what you're trying to avoid, which it's easy to do, like if you see a pothole and you're like, oh man, I don't want to hit that pothole. So you keep an eye on the pothole, you go right to it.
Yeah.
And the same is true with your thoughts. You know, if we can tether our thoughts more to Jesus, we'll move towards being more like Jesus. So Paul says it's really important to start fixing your thoughts, to direct your thoughts on the way that you want it to go. And I think it's super interesting that there's all kinds of philosophies and religions that talk about this idea of the power of thinking, which means that there's definitely validity and truth to it. Even if you're not a follower of Jesus, how you think makes a big difference in how you function. And so, Paul's encouragement to us is to fix our thoughts on things that move us towards Christ-likeness, things that move us towards unity. That's what we need to set our minds to.
Yeah. Yeah. So like when Peter is trying to tell Jesus not to die, he says like your thoughts aren't on the things of God, they're on human concerns.
Yeah.
And then he calls him Satan. So there's some wisdom there. Like Paul had his thoughts completely focused on this human way of understanding, which was very selfish and very fearful and very divisive. And he says, no, man, fix your things on the things of God and all this will work itself out.
Yeah.
And he took him a while to learn that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He kept messing up a few times after that. Yeah.
Right. That's been one of the most powerful practices in my life, is to learn to redirect the thoughts that I'm having. And it's really cool to watch your life change based on changing your thought life. So yeah, there's definitely truth to that. And that
Very
was our
powerful thing.
big idea yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah. If you want to change your life, you got to change your thinking.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'd love to kind of bring this home on that beautiful note. What are some ways that you have seen that principle of changing your thinking really lead to you acquiring your desires and in turn, even more joy?
Yeah. I mean, just what you just said is so powerful. This idea of, I mean, I've seen it in how I think about another person. And that's the context of what Paul is talking about here, you know, thinking about what's true, honorable, right, pure, lovely, admirable. Talking to people who are in conflict with one another, you can rehearse that conflict in such a way that all you see is toxicity and, you know, motive and how could they. And Paul says, you know, if you redirect that and change how you're thinking about that, it'll change how you view that other person. And I mean, I've experienced that myself. And you talked earlier about just when you're feeling anxious, you need to draw a boundary. Like that's an indicator that you need to draw a boundary. But that anxious thought is also cue to redirect your thinking. If you're thinking anxious thoughts, then that's also a cue that there's something internally I need to redirect my thought onto something more positive, something better.
Yeah.
And how does it not improve your lot?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I think too, it's just like understanding that like I don't know everything about the person that I might be in conflict with.
Yeah.
There might be something happening in their life that I don't see, I'm not aware of, that could explain kind of why they're acting the way they're acting or why the conflict exists in the first place. So just knowing that like every person has a story, every person has something they're facing, they have a conflict in their own life that isn't me, that it kind of helps you it humbles you a bit, and it shows you like I can think the best of the other person. Like that one person who could be, what do we call them? The joy suckers?
Yeah.
That one person that I might consider that, what if there's something happening in our life that would explain that?
Yeah.
They could be going through something that is so incredibly difficult that I don't know of. That
Probably are.
Then they probably are. Right. That would explain why they're responding the way that they are. So if I can remind myself that and be prayerful around that, I'm not upset at the person, but I'm praying for the person and praying for blessings and praying for love and praying for God's will to be done in their life. So it helps me to refocus as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think of 4 years ago, I was sitting at one of my best friend's houses on a Mother's Day, and I was crying my eyes out because I wanted so badly to be a mom. And at that time, I just thought, I'm never going to be a mom. Like, I don't know what to do with this desire. It was like a hope deferred, my heart was sick kind of situation. And I was like, I don't know how to fit this into my world. I was not dating. I was not married, nothing. But I had this longing to be a mother and care for kids. And I remember going home, and she was just praying with me and encouraging me. You know, she gave me those thoughts to redirect when I didn't have them, because we were in that intimate relationship together where she could say that to me. And I went home and I took those thoughts and I wrote it down in my little 1-bedroom apartment, and I hung it on the door, and I said, I am a mom. I am a foster mom. I live in a 3-bedroom home in a safe neighborhood where I care for my kids. And then I look up today and I have all those things. And it just brings me so much joy every day to just walk with my kids and be a mom and take care of them. And I don't think that would have happened if I didn't trust that principle and take a risk to say, I'm going to think a different way about these desires.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So good.
So, well, I think that's all we have time for today. Did you guys have anything else you want to?
No, it's perfect.
I kind of want to keep talking about Revelation, honestly.
Right? I know.
I haven't read the book yet.
We have, that's coming. The reading plan's going to get us there, and we can spend the whole podcast on
that'd be
Revelation.
awesome.
Yes. Well, until next time, maybe we'll put the book out there and we can go look for it, read the book.
Yeah. Hopefully it's
tide
good.
you over.
Yeah, if you're looking for a good read, Scott McKnight, Revelation, you'll find it.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah. And we are looking forward to seeing you guys on Sunday when we're continuing our series, Joyride. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's time for us to go be love.